Hello, what is going on? I'm going to do another very rambly post. Let's see, how does it look? No, we gotta have light. But I'm new to this. I'm doing it very ramshackle. You can probably hear my computer noise, so sorry about that. But there's nothing we can do. This is another introduction to experimental unit. So I've been thinking, this is in the description, I've been thinking I should make shorter videos because you know how people's attention spans are and everything. But I want to just go ahead and just make super long videos, I think, for people who just want to listen to something, whatever, you enjoy my vibe. But also just people, just so the information's out there in this audio visual format so that in case anybody cares, this will be, and this will serve as a facilitation for you to understand what I'm on about. And so that will be good. Because I want to, whatever, connect with people. Oftentimes I have a lot going on I'm going to tell you about. Usually you can only talk about some things in one conversation, right? So a lot gets left by the wayside all the time. So now, as I was saying, turning myself inside out so you can see a part of me that's drifting over you. Okay, Super Bowl winners. Oh, wait, I'm not screen sharing yet. So we are mute website notifications while sharing. So things have really gotten escalated here because we have now logged into Twitter on the desktop here. So we can be doing Twitter things. I also created I can't edit this from here. That I neglected that. I am going to have to figure this out. We can just try. Oh, I can check my email. Oh, that should stop. I could have stopped this before, but I can just stop sharing my screen. But that email is not, what are we, private or anything. So yeah, you can also just email me at that if you want. But so for now, I gotta go do that. So the point is, though, once we do this, then I'll be able to be editing that document on this stream. Oops. So then at that point, I'll basically not just be able to, jump from page to page and show you various things, but I can also be collating them and collecting all these links at least within this document while I'm doing it. So instead of like having to do it afterwards or whatever. So now, did it work? What's the movie where they're like, did it work? I don't know if it actually did work. Maybe this is the one I had to do. Oh, it worked. Okay. So sorry for all this introduction, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles. We have here the streaming document. We can edit it, right? Okay. So this is where we're going, right? This is what we call, this is again moving toward, for example, a total work of art. That's a big aspect of where experimental unit came from. Like, it's hard for me to explain to you or even present to you the intellectual history because I recorded a bunch of like podcast episodes that are now, they're on my phone. I could host them somewhere else. We can try and set that up, I guess, on this stream. So then but they were on a SoundCloud, but then like I don't have enough money to like run an unlimited SoundCloud anymore. So I just have SoundCloud Basic. So what happens when like I had like way too much stuff, right? So what happens is it just becomes unplayable, like or invisible. So I'd have to like delete everything just to be able to get to it. It's not worth it. Well, I mean, I guess I don't have to. I could go on like the website or something, but it's just like it's not worth it. I have to make like they're so long. Like the in particular, like I did one on Total War and Total Art where it's like 2 hours long. It's like me driving around like a random ass fucking Washington State, just philosophizing. But anyways, let's see. We can edit this, right? Should I just close one that was doing this? Okay. So first of all, like we need to like this is just like this is so funny. I'm putting together the means of production, right? Because it's like I need to keep this shit organized because like the classic thing that like problem that I happened last time, not just that like the default search is Yahoo, which like again, like don't blame me, this isn't my computer and things like but oh yeah, reading some New York Times, classic. Oh wait, now it's not. Now I'm not sure which screen it's sharing. That's an issue. Maybe I should. Can I have it just share my whole screen, entire screen? Okay. So anyway, the Total War and Total Art, right? That's sort of where I'm choosing to start. But first, I have to like organize. I have to assemble the musicians, basically. And so again, this is a little bit of pre, but so we don't need that one. So basically, I'm trying to get together X. We have this, and then like I want to edit my YouTube channel basically at the same time. So maybe I'll just like put this in. This is also like probably really bad security culture, but I like don't care. Oh yeah, I watch a lot of poker videos and Magic the Gathering. Shout out to everybody who's into it. What is it that I basically want to do? All I want to do is share the link. So all I need to do is copy this. And then we're going over here and we're like, boom. Oh, and now we can just update it a million times. That's great. So then what we're doing is I'm showing you all the shit that I was just talking about. Okay. So Total War and Total Work of Art. I mean, it's funny. My podcast got picked up by a lot of different places. So it's been like, I'm curious whether in one of these mirrors it'll come up. Maybe they're just so hard to find. But anyway, it doesn't really matter because there's a Wikipedia page called Gesamtkunstwerk. Okay, so now if I was making a chapter break, it would be like, this is where like the actual video is starting. So like, sorry, it's taken me so long. I don't even know how long I've been going, 8 minutes. But whatever. Oh, we can actually do this. So we just go to maybe this one and just be like, we gotta keep going back and editing this, right? Like that's herbity flurbity derbity derp. Oh, and now this happens like, oh, okay. I post. Okay, so now we got to update because it's not 8 minutes anymore because my attempt to make it easier has now cost 4 minutes. Okay. All right. Update. Okay, so going back to what the heck it is we're talking about, right? We're talking about experimental unit, right? Again, so experimental unit. This is the Substack where I just have like so much about it. So again, we can maybe just start off with the first entry here just to again like establish, because I didn't even read this whole thing. So experimental unit. What's in a title? The provisional title for this piece for weeks has been, what is experimental unit? This formulation has sat uneasily, even more uneasily than the task of writing this piece in general. I'm grateful that another title has come to me. So basically, like, you know, what's the entry point? I mean, I'm so allergic, or I really don't like the fixed concepts. So the idea of creating a concept to encapsulate like my ideas or something is very uncomfortable for me. So instead of setting it up to where it's like, I'm going to tell you everything there is to know, or I'm going to be able to define, right? We're going to bring this up later on. We can just get there through X, because, you know, one of the people that I follow on X and that, or on Twitter, although it's funny because it's a big part of like my aesthetic as well, because experimental unit, you can see my handle is just experimental unit, and then I have you know, the XU in my dang it, Bobby, I'm trying to show you my profile picture, right? So like the XU, and then I made this the alternate colors because these are the main colors, but I have this as like a banner. It's pretty sick. And then what is it that we are looking at again? It's basically that. Oh yeah, I'm showing you Ben Swibelson. So Ben Swibelson is on Twitter. It's fucking amazing. Ben Swibelson is like, oh, and I got Anna KW. I probably like introduced this person to this person. Not like obviously in person. I'm way too much of a parasocial whatever, nothing burger for that to be the case. But like, I think like I went on this person's Discord server, and then like I've been getting in. Like the way I even found out about Ben Swibelson was because of Jean Baudrillard. So just to like explain where all this is coming from, and then like how did Anna KW? I think I just saw on X. I don't know what I was doing, but I was like, I'm at least interested in like the weird psychos who are like in technology and doing like philosophy and everything. Because I'm like, oh, like this is where, you know, this is really important. Oh, how do I even explain? I mean, for that we'd have to go to Baudrillard. So I guess let's just fucking go. Let's just, you know, like this is just ADD the podcast, okay? So like if you can't handle that, if you can't step into the kitchen or whatever, then, you know, that's okay. But I'm just showing you what I like. It's either one of these. I always get Carnival and Cannibal and Agony of Power confused. You always, at this point, I think there may be a better PDF of Carnival and Cannibal, but I've neglected to change the PDF on here. Also, like, I did this, right? This is another one. This is another world historical thing that I did. Like, check it out. Like, my compendium, like, I collated. Obviously, I'm super into Baudrillard, right? So I downloaded every single one of his books that I could find. And there's probably more. There's probably more and better PDFs. I could make that a post on the thingamajig. But anywho, yeah, we can do it all with DMs and everything. So, but I mean, anyway, it's just funny to me because, like, if you look at my notifications, Ben Swibelson liked my post where I say like he's selling this, and I am offering a PDF online. Like this is another archive.org thing that I made. Yeah, and see, this one I did very professionally, right? Like nothing is amiss about this. Except, like, I mean, if you look at this, there's probably... Oh, this is the only thing on there. Wow, I'm so respectful of Ben Swibelson. I didn't put it on one of my psycho accounts. But, I mean, it's not like it's hard to figure out who's the psycho here. I think it's actually in Carnival and Cannibal. So these two books are fucking amazing, okay? First of all, and look, I could not have made it any easier to like read these books. Right? Like I run the Baudrillard subreddit, and this is oh, it has a 0. Okay, maybe I can remove it. but it has fucking the collected works right here. Right? That's where this is. So I'm just helping everybody out. Anyway, Carnival and Cannibal, Agony of Power. They both came out after he died. They're, I don't know, just both really interesting. What I'm trying to find is where he basically talks about how like the technological apparatus retains like a high symbolic importance. Yeah, this is basically the part that I'm looking for. But this whole part is basically amazing. So I'm just going to read this whole thing to you. Okay, the basic rule, which, though it comes from the depths of our anthropology, still applies even in our present world, is the rule of gift and counter gift. By the way, I said this in the previous episode, parts of Baudrillard, where he's just like, I don't know why, like, for me, this, like, badassery is expressing it. Like, he's shooting with the machine gun, right? Like, this is dropping bombs. I guess, like, this is established. I'm kind of weirding myself out. But, like, you could also just talk about it. This is actually coming to me from, like, Bill Simmons and the Rewatchables and, like, that kind of discourse where it's, like, the idea of comparing somebody to a basketball player, right? So like Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men, like they'd be like, you know, he comes in for 8 minutes at the end and shoots like 15 threes. I mean, I think they don't even go so hyperbolic, you know, like this person scores like 18 points off the bench, like in 3 minutes, like it's crazy or whatever. You could also put it in this terms because I regret a little bit putting it in gosh darn violent. Oh, because of just this is a brief side note. I mean, just as in terms, I mean, we talk about nonviolence, blah blah blah, but like, there's also just like ahimsa, like, this is like this whole idea of like not hurting people is like a lot of people do this shit. So, but then in terms of like how this plays itself out in serious people, like, there's this idea of non-kinetic capabilities. And then non-kinetic is, I mean, that can also just mean like jamming, like electronics and stuff, like stuff that actually is like pretty violent, basically. But it can also mean like influence operations. So what's the difference between a military influence operation and, what do we say, dharmic soteriological practice? It really makes you think. So in case anybody doesn't know what soteriological means, soteriology is the idea of like salvation. So it obviously comes up in a lot of different things, but so consider it to be a good thing, right? It's basically like spiritual healing, right? Like the medicinal. Yeah, the medicinal. Like, I like to think about that because it's like there's the political, right? There's the economic. But then you could say there's the martial. Like, I mean, people would normally say there's the military, but you could say there's the soteriological, right? And whatever it was that I just said, but I'm getting so far off track. I'm trying to read you this thing about Baudrillard. Is the rule of gift and counter gift. So yeah, so I brought all that up just to say like just so you know, like this passage is so fucking good. It's like, I just watched the roast of Tom Brady yesterday. Like, it's like Tom Brady, came in because Drew Bledsoe got hurt. It's like Drew Bledsoe. I mean, just to like, this is just at the end of this game massacre. I mean, he also wrote all of this, right? So it's not like he actually got replaced, but it's basically like, at the end of the game, you're already up by like 27,000 to 0. But then like in the last, like, 2 minutes, right? You just score like 20 points. I don't know. I can't, now that I built it up so much, I can't follow through. But this shit is fucking crazy. Like, all right, the basic rule, though it comes from the depths of our anthropology, still applies even in our present world, is the rule of the gift and counter gift. If the natural world is given to us, then we must be able to respond to that. If we cannot, then we have to eliminate the natural world. Okay, so first of all, Dude Bro is not like just saying this. Or maybe he is. I don't know. Anyway, if we cannot, then we have to eliminate the natural world. It is an undertaking of just this kind that the human race has embarked upon, launching itself, particularly in modern times, into ever-increasing abstraction, going so far as to create a hegemonic structure that liberates us totally from the natural order. By this global performance, this technical scheming, this substitution of a controllable universe made by our own hand, we are probably trying to ward off the anxiety produced by everything that has escaped us since the beginning, by what has been given to us without our having anything to give back. Okay, this is fucking like crucial. Like, I don't like some of this stuff. I can't like tell you what all of this like means or whatever. That's not the fucking point. Right. The point is this is fucking juicy, right? Like in terms of like this is what you fucking build. You can make a religion out of this shit, right? Not like a religion, but anyway, that's just a reference to or like history of everything. I just want to, this. It's just because I don't want to seem too psychotic. Although I am. Anyway. Now we're looking for... Is this the one that I started off with this? No, okay. I just want to be collecting this. So now is when we go to... So I can't just keep updating this thing all the time because this is too annoying. So I need to like this needs to be its own video. And then I'll like, or whatever. And then I'll, just add things here. So like this, for example, oh, whoa, that's actually pretty cool. I like that. Okay, I don't know how I did that, but I like that. It prevents you from even having to make a link or a hyperlink or anything. Anyway, so we're doing Baudrillard. We're doing, I'm reading this part to you. So what is so fucking cool about this is he's breaking this down. Everything that has escaped us since the beginning by what has been given to us without our having anything to give back. So this is in conversation with something. He's been talking about this shit since, gosh darn, symbolic exchange and death. We got our jabroni here talking about basically, I don't know exactly what to search up, but maybe like unilateral giving. Yeah, the work is the notion of the unilateral gift as the source of power. So I can't get into the weeds on this because I'm just going to start getting super distracted. But like the idea that, it's not, you don't actually get power by taking, but by giving. I thought maybe it would talk about Arbeitgeber. Okay. So like he's talking about like in German, which I also speak, but like in German, you talk about somebody who's your employer as basically somebody who gives you a job. So in America, we also talk about, job creators or whatever. So I'm not fucking endorsing fucking Republican Party talking points or whatever. I'm not saying like some chud shit about like job creators or something. Like what I'm saying is that is at this like symbolic level, like what is humiliating, for example, to all of us in this industrial world is, for example, like say you're really anti-colonial, right? Like colonialism, you consider that to be bad. But, the system of colonialism, like created everything that is around us, right? So it has given you your life, right? So it's all well and good to be like, oh, I don't like it. But in a way, like you don't have a proper response. People in general feel humiliated by the fact that we are imposed on so much. A lot of people, deal with this or something by like trying to identify with what has been imposed on us or something, but you never really get the whole way around that. Anyway, so maybe we can just zoom in here. Maybe this helps, especially on like mobile or something. It's hard for me to imagine anybody would actually watch this, but that's fine. So I also really appreciate everything that has escaped us since the beginning. I want to be collecting these links. Yeah, and I guess we can start closing them. non-kinesis, ahimsa. Yeah, I mean, we can link to this. And we can link to this. Yeah, I mean, we can just link to all the different books separately. I mean, there's no reason why you're not allowed to do that, right? Anyway, so in terms of the anxiety, which of everything that has escaped us since the beginning, what's my man talking about? This is where I will refer you to frickin' Pyrrhonism, dude. Pyrrhonism is frickin' amazing. Like, this shit is off the fucking chain. Like, it undefeated. What is it? Undefeated heavyweight champion. That's what I say. I say, skepticism is basically undefeated, and all philosophy is a response to skepticism, and an ineffective response. But see, the thing is, you don't have to have a philosophical response. Like, it's not humiliating that we can't respond to skepticism. That has everything to do with like the reason why it is possible for there to be multiple things, why we can have what I call the charm of incarnation, right? And so this is, I don't know, basically in terms of all the theory and everything, it's basically just like, it's nice to be alive. It's nice that it's possible for things to be alive. So it's not sitting here telling you like your life is good, blah, blah, blah. Like in terms of just like scolding people for like not appreciating shit, like I'm not about that. Okay. I don't know. I wish I had something to show you about this, but it's basically like you accept everything, but that includes when people don't accept things, including ourselves. So like, I don't know. Okay, this is a great example. Like, I was really upset, and I was like, hey, this is a really weird thing to do in general, but I was like, hey, can you tell me that it's going to be all right? So, like, this, anyway. And then this person was like, it already is, right? So this person is like, it's okay. And it's funny because this, like, in general, like, I'd be into this. Like, it reminds me of the kingdom of God is at hand. Right? So it's like everything is perfect. And that has also everything to do with, again, Glaucus lingerie. I guess I can do this. Glaucus lingerie is in this one. And I can even like copy this out, but it's basically just like, the point of this is that what makes it seem like we're far away from God is actually, it makes the entire experience better. Like, yeah, is it too hard to explain? I mean, it can't be too hard to explain, but like, yeah, I mean, the whole idea of the lingerie, it's like, a good way to talk about this is that all of this is to be talking about theodicy, right? Like, so much of this is coming down to like, why do bad things happen, mommy? Right? Like, shit is just fucked, right? And bad shit happens to everybody, and shit happens to us that we don't deserve, right? Or that we didn't do anything, right? In terms of our simplistic understanding, right? As like, this is maybe what there is to understand, like what there is to talk about. Like, what do I mean by our simplistic understanding? What I mean is like the kind of shit where we just like, it's in a way narcissism, or it's in a way ignorance, right? It's not just a problem with us. It's like it's a, like, what it even is, it's a status. It's a mismatch between ourselves and our environment. So like what, yeah. So like, it basically also amounts to commodity fetishism. Like, what exactly is commodity fetishism, right? Because it basically is ignorance, and there's like complacency, and there's I don't even know, but it's also like the information could be being withheld from you, right? So ignorance, I mean, it's sort of like that, but it also sounds like you're just judging people for being ignorant. But basically, it's about causality, right? And then it's like, uh-oh, now you're in big trouble, mister, right? Content. I mean, this is probably fucking a broken article in case anybody wants to understand what this is about. Like, and then because you're at the point where it's like, I'm sorry, causality. Now you're just, what am I trying to say here? There's a, I guess in terms of this simplistic understanding, like, think about the guy who was like, I refute it thus, right? There's a guy who was like, there's skepticism, right? And people are like, the world doesn't exist. And the guy was like, well, check this out. And he kicked a rock. And he was like, that refutes skepticism because, like, I don't know, I felt the stone, you know, like, but there's just still so much, which not everything's like that, right? Like, where did the stone come from? Like, what is the stone? Like, what is even happening? Because, like, in a way, to really understand something, you should really understand, like, where it came from. So the idea of what anything is immediately leads to the question of, like, where did everything come from? It leads to theological and high, you know, not metaphysical, but like physics, right? Like the idea that we're just going to complete physics and physics is going to settle all of this for us is, I think, it's in a way a pipe dream, right? Like it doesn't seem like it's going to happen anytime soon. And the other thing is that it seems to be that the more you investigate physics, the weirder it fucking gets, right? So it's not going to be this simple, like, causal explanation. It's not going to be a linear. It's not going to be Newtonian, right? And now we're circling back around. And we also had before we were talking about Ben Swibelson. Oh, wow. I still have so much more to read on that. But I wanted to basically show you this. And so this was just funny because he liked my post where I posted a pirated version of the book that he's selling. But he just wants to get his ideas out there because I mean, I don't really know anything about this person, but their videos are cool. Their books are cool. Because what's great about Ben Swibelson is that they talk about, and I just call everybody, I don't know if I'm also establish this every time. I try to call everybody they because I'm a gender nihilist or something. Yeah, like, yeah. I mean, I've been over this before, but I'm like a nominalist. So they is just my way of saying, like, I don't actually believe in male and female, or men and women. So I just call everybody they because I think everybody's agender, basically, is the idea. So yeah, we could, I guess we're going over all this again, so we have to, like, collect the links. So we had the appeal to the stone. But basically, the other thing that I wanted to show that he had done was breaking the Newtonian fetish, right? Because he's talking about fetishism, and I just got back to Newtonianism again. And so part of what Newtonian is, I love this part. According to this Newtonian worldview, at the ontological level, what is and is not war phenomenon. Oh man, I mean, he's got to say war phenomena. He's got to have an editor. But anyway, they need Ben. You need to get an editor. Anyway, at the ontological level, war phenomena, according to this Newtonian worldview, must consist of discrete objective elements. So I love it because he's like, you know how you think there are discrete objects? You're such a fucking idiot. Like, obviously, there's Swibelson is not judgmental like that and knows a lot more about the applicability of Newtonian concepts. So I'm mainly focused on like where I think I have, I don't know, my energy has something to say, which is um, in this exploration of, you know, what the alternative, like this non-Newtonian space. What is going on here? This seems like a place definitely where you could just bullshit around and like talk about philosophy, and then like some people who work with machines can take what you say and like make some wild shit happen. Like that seems like where we are. And the idea that like, oh well, you don't want to give people, you know, you're giving away wealth, or like, you know, this, I don't know, this idea of like being so paranoid and also like out for self-aggrandizement and trying to like survive and all this stuff. It feels to me like what is more exciting to be motivated by is just that like there's a big transformation happening. And that's really why I wanted to talk about this passage in the first place. So we can just, but so this question of everything that has escaped us since the beginning is what I was still talking about, because it's about Pyrrhonism and theodicy. Like, this is something that I was thinking about one time when I was in an altered state of mind, is that like Pyrrhonism really gets us to question everything. There's also something awesome called the Munchausen trilemma. Like, as far as I know, like that's when I say like this shit is the undefeated heavyweight champion of the world. Is that still over here? Yeah, and maybe I will go ahead and update it now, just because it's like it's now there's like a lot more there. So that's pretty cool. And I feel like I'm not just like treading my wheels, like I haven't talked about anything. And like it is a huge mess, but like I can't do anything about that, right? Like this is just how I am. And technically I'm collating information. Anyway, so the Munchausen trilemma, like it applies to everything, right? So what is the Munchausen trilemma? So in epistemology is like the branch of knowledge concerned with knowledge. It studies the nature, origin, and scope of knowledge. Epistemic justification. That's so funny. It uses the same word. Basically, how do you know what you know? That, or like, how do you justify your knowledge? What does it say? Debates clustered around. Okay, the Munchausen trilemma. Funnily enough, have you ever heard that bullshit where people are like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps? That's what this shit is about, right? Because this person is reputed in the story to have gone into water on a horse and pulled himself up by his own hair. Anyway, so the Munchausen trilemma is a thought experiment intended to demonstrate the theoretical impossibility of proving any truth, even in the fields of logic and mathematics, without appealing to accepted assumptions. If it is asked how any given proposition is known to be true, proof in support of that proposition may be provided. Yet that same question can be asked of that supporting proof and any subsequent supporting proof. The Munchausen trilemma is that there are only three ways of completing a proof. The circular argument, in which the proof of some proposition presupposes the truth of that very proposition. The regressive argument, in which each proof requires a further proof ad infinitum. You can also call this an infinite regress. The dogmatic argument, which rests on accepted premises which are merely asserted rather than defended. The trilemma then is the decision among the three equally unsatisfying options. Karl Popper's suggestion was to accept the trilemma as unsolvable and work with knowledge by way of conjecture and criticism. See, Karl Popper, noted, not an idiot. I don't know, whatever, the Free Society and positivism. I don't know that much about this person, but, you know, not known, you know, for being stupid or whatever, like, or is a serious person. That's what I'm really trying to say, right? Like, nobody thinks Karl Popper was psychotic, right? And Karl Popper thinks the trilemma is unsolvable, right? Which means, like, you can't justify anything, like, rigorously. Like, you can't just know everything. Like, which means, like, the question of when do we stop talking about, like, what's worth talking about is political, right? So you have to decide, like, where are we going to use our resources and what we're going to talk about, because we could do everything. Like, we could rethink everything all the time, and like, basically we should. Like, I really think we should do that. Like, that's what industrial bureaucracy and like that's what the economy of the future is fucking based on, in my opinion. Is basically conceptual churn. Where, you know, anyway. But so Munchausen trilemma, you can doubt anything. But where I was going with that is that, like, it's not just about doubting anything. Like, all questions are not equally, I don't know, poignant or something. Like, what am I trying to say here? Basically, like, I don't know definitively the answer to any question, but the fact that I don't know the answer to a question bothers me more for some questions than for others. So, like, I don't sit here and wonder, why didn't Greece win at Thermopylae, right? Like, I feel like I get why, like they had a lot fewer people, like in terms of what I'm talking about. It's like what the movie 300 is about. But it's basically like, these people were just trying to like hold people off, but maybe not. Maybe they expected to win. And maybe you could ask like what could have happened differently that Greece would have won or whatever Greece is, Athens, whatever. I don't know. So point is that never occurs to me. Also, it was a long fucking time ago, and I feel like it doesn't matter for my life, right? So that's why I don't really fucking care that much about. But some people, right, would be very interested in this, and maybe I do have a more, I don't know if you'd say academic interest. I mean, this does affect me, right? Like everything affects everything, right? That's where we have. Fucking, fucking pratyasam utpada, like that shit. That's where like everything relies on everything else, right? And you can also go over to Indra's net and talk about this. So, so it's like basically everything causes everything. So you have this Pranapada and then Indra's net, right? It's basically an idea that like everything is inside of everything else. It does relate in a way to the Mobius strip. Which also, what are we trying to say here? Ben Zweibelson talks about the Mobius strip in his book. Oh, I could talk about that. Let's see. This is Ben Zweibelson. So, like, I don't know. So yeah, like this fucking book. Like you can just go and get this book. Like this book is fucking amazing. Nice. See, he talks about this, right? And he's on about Deleuzian folds and shit. Like, this is like the whole fucking plan is coming together. Anyway, it's very exciting. Like, it's very exciting that, we're doing, we're doing like crazy philosophy as well as, military stuff. Like, this is so important because, the military is basic, like what you're even understanding there is like the political antagonism. And so like the big problem is you have the political antagonism and you have the fucking, you have our date with destiny in terms of gosh darn technology, right? Technology is getting fucking crazy. I can't spell. And in the meantime, we're fighting, right? That's the fucking problem, is that like our machines are getting more important and like we're creating a bunch of problems and we can clean up our problems. Like that's not like completely impossible, but it's like in order to clean up our problems, we'd have to stop fighting, right? And so fundamentally, you can talk about that as a political problem. Like, is there a political problem? Like, is it what is that's where you get into, we were talking about this yesterday at the film screening discussion. I guess it's just on contradiction. I just want to know, I'm more interested specifically in the idea of the primary contradiction. But I guess this is just like what it's all about. Because basically, like, okay, so I just brought up Heidegger out of nowhere. So where does he say this? Yeah, technicity. Okay, great. Oh, so I mean, this isn't the question, but like, that's basically. Oh, maybe, but also says maybe technicity. Oh God. So let's try and find something. Posture. So there's basically like planetary technicity. So basically, like the technology that we're developing is a problem. So like even outside of colonialism, for example, like you could imagine a different timeline where people are super nice to each other, and then there's just like all of a sudden there's a huge problem because they realize that nuclear bombs are possible. And now it's a big now you a lot of the same shit would happen because it's a new fucking paranoia because like just the structural nature of the risk demands a lot of things. So it's like you could always talk about it in terms of the great filter, right? Like the great filter is an idea that, you know, there could be things could come to a head for a lot of different planetary civilizations or whatever in a lot of different ways. Like so it's not just about, the specific kind of person, but I mean, this is so interesting to talk about for me because it's basically to say like, even on our planet, like we have this thing like, the European, the Great Separation, right? So like this is starting to get into the topics related to, I wonder if is that even what it's called? Oh, this is what it's called now. That's not what it is. It also can be called the European Miracle, but like that's like it's pretty racist. Oh, it's a book. That's good. They don't actually. Great Divergence. So this is basically the thing. Like when we're talking about European colonialism, like we're talking about this thing that happened because of stuff like this Great Divergence. I'm gonna go ahead and update again. Why the fuck not? Which is basically where Europe like got a lot more powerful than other people, and so they fucked over everybody, and now it goes to like how people talk about white people even to this day, and like and stuff like the Nazism and the Holocaust is in a way, it's the elaboration, it's the extreme, not even the whole extreme. That's what's really fucking crazy, is that like in a way people are like, I think at least especially at the time, people were like, this Holocaust shit, that's the worst shit that could ever fucking happen in the world. And like the H cost, don't get me wrong, was like really fucked up. Even if you want to talk about singularity, fine. I'm also descended from somebody who will perpetrate the H cost, by the way. But they were a child soldier as well, so it's a little bit. But they were also 17. So, but I mean, I'm just the kind of person where like the mitigating or traumatic aspects of my story, people would normally like gloss over. But I'm just at least presenting them to you. But yeah, but I'm trying to be like downplay it because I don't want you to think that I think I'm owed anything or something. Anyway, this is just like obviously all very delicate topics, but I'm just trying to fucking like deal with this. So it's like obviously we have to talk about European colonialism, and what I'm trying to say is like the Holocaust represents the not even the extreme version, right? Because like you could be like, oh, you killed 6 million people, like it. What is so staggering about the Holocaust, right, is that you're applying industrial organization to murder and to ethnic murder, because like and religious murder, because like the motive for the murder is in a way very basic, right? It seems very unsophisticated, right? It seems very barbaric, right? It's just like, oh, well, they're a different religion, they're bad, we don't like them, and so we're gonna kill them, right? Even though like because people would be like, oh, the Jewish people, they're just fucking, they're fucking up our economy and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, motherfucking, like, there's even if you want to get like super fucking, what I'm trying to say is like, there's people who are, say, working in newspapers, working in the media, blah, 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 doing things that are like impacting a lot of shit. And then there's just some random fucking people in Poland that are just like fucking like living on a farm, and you want to go out of your way to fucking murder them. Because anyway, it's just a very stupid, like, or not stupid, but like, I mean, it is stupid, whatever. Like, it's just a very, like, what is so jarring about the Holocaust is that there's this, like, the motivation behind it seems so, I mean, I'm trying to find the right word, but it's a contrast to the high level of technology and sophistication and organization. Of course, you know, the Ostplan, in Operation Barbarossa was actually not that well organized in the end, but still, like, the idea that at the end of the war, you know, we're losing a total war, we're losing the biggest land war of all time, and then while we're doing this, like, we are expending great amount of resources to, you know, use trains. And like, so what I'm trying to say is, like, the industry that's being brought to bear for the Holocaust is stuff like trains and gas and furnaces, right, and mass graves and machine guns and barbed wire and like um all this stuff, right? And which has everything to do also with like all the technology that's being used for the Second World War and everything. But the technology that we have now is even more destructive. That's what I'm trying to tell you, right? So when it comes to talking about stuff like climate change, or we're talking about stuff like drones, or we're talking about stuff like you know, genetically targeted bioweapons, you know, you're talking about stuff that can kill a lot more than 6 million fucking people, right? Like, and we are currently walking into a fucking slaughterhouse of a century. Like, we are like, I'm sorry for getting agitated, but it is like, it is in a way insane to live in a world where it's like we have all these out of control processes and there is zero plan for trying to, you know, overcome basically, which is what is fundamentally the political problem, which is the military problem. Like, the idea that there are multiple different like groups of people who are developing technology, which is becoming so powerful that everybody's becoming so afraid of all the technology that everybody else is developing that they are going to have to take preemptive strikes to stop the other people from developing technology, which makes it justified for those other people to think that they are going to be attacked. And so they will take preemptive attacks. This is why I have been fucking pounding the table on the Hobbesian trap. Like, I mean, pounding the table. I haven't even been doing many videos yet, but like, here we are, right? This is me fucking pounding the table for the Hobbesian trap, because this is basically the problem. And like, again, applying it to with like great, not great divergence, but great filter logic. Like, if you're saying like this gets into something like structural realism, right? And I mean, structural realism, it's not like it's the end all be all. Let me reiterate, you know, we have Wonder Twin Powers activate protocol in effect. So it's like everything needs to be in conversation. Everything, like, back to over here. Gosh darn it. Where did I even put it? This, right? Everything is co-originating. Everything's interpenetrating, right? You can also think about this very much erotically. You can think about it like in the same way, if you think about like from a physics perspective, like to talk about Indra's net, or to do a physical explanation of stuff like the dream time. Again, the dreaming is this idea that, you know, the time of creation is like still here. We're gonna go back and still here. But so if you want to talk about it, you could say like, well, maybe the Big Bang, like from everything we understand, like during the Big Bang, everything was very close together, right? So maybe everything during the Big Bang was entangled. So yeah, entangled. So we talk about entanglement. So maybe there might be an idea. People might have already established this idea. I mean, going into science and non-duality. This seems like a little bit reputable, because I mean, once you start going into, you know, quantum mechanics and you know, Hinduism or whatever, like obviously you're going to get into a bunch of trouble. And you know, Alan Sokol's going to write a paper about me. But the basic idea is there's that, and then there's the holographic principle, right? So like all these things are relevant. To what exactly? Good question. Well, we got Hobbesian trap. Yeah, let's zoom back out a little bit because we're still talking about this. We're talking about everything that has escaped us since the beginning by what has been given to us without our having anything to give back. So think about like how people are doing. How I wish I could like create a new tab, but it was like right next to this one. Maybe I just like start a whole new thing. Because there's cognitive rigidity. Yeah, this is the thing. I think I found out. I don't know if I really want to do it like that. We could do it like this. Yeah, so we can do mental rigidity. And then we can have frickin', what I'm trying to say is like symbolic or emotional rigidity. Because say you have something like ancestor worship, right? Ancestor worship is something which has been seen a lot, and you can call it like a cultural universal. I don't really agree with the term here. But, things like burying the dead, right? Things like that are pretty fucking basic. Veneration is probably even a better word. But so, like, people want to venerate the dead, right? But so what happens if, basically, so what happens when your ancestor, ancestor did something bad, right? That's a problem. Like, for example, like my Opa, right? My Opa was in the Waffen-SS, right? But again, as a 17-year-old, and like volunteered to go, but it was a coerced. I think this is something people increasingly know about. That there were a lot of. I mean, just generally in war, there's a lot of coerced volunteering and stuff like that. Getting people. I mean, this is happening in Ukraine right now. But basically from a couple generations ago, it applies to my family, but for the fucking Nazi army. And then once the person was in the Nazi army, like my Opa, I think he fought in France, but then he went to fucking Hungary. So we really don't fucking know what happened in Hungary with my grandfather in 1944, 1945. But so that's not really what I'm trying to say here. In terms of what has been given to us without this applies to me, but what I'm trying to talk about is like institutional, like establishment cognitive rigidity. Like imagine instead of like, or not cognitive rigidity, but symbolic rigidity. It's basically like you've been given America, right? Which isn't a real thing, but like in terms of like the situation which has been handed off to people, like it is ridiculous. Like the mantle people are able to assume because of just like inheriting like this whatever is going on, this technicity, whatever, right? Whatever you want to talk about. So then what we would like to give back, right, would be like, oh, this is what we're going to do with it, right? We have a good idea for like what we're going to do with America in general, like what we're going to do with all of these fucking computers. What are we going to do with all of this cultural information? What are we going to do with all of everything we've inherited, right? But we haven't just inherited, right, just assets. We've also inherited liabilities. We've been traumatized by expectations. We've had roles enforced on us. We've inherited conflicts. We want more than somewhere I read, right? We want more than the wars of our fathers, okay? And it's like, well, the only place you're going to fucking get it is from inside your fucking heart, right? So where the fuck is it, right? So that's what it means, like, without our having anything to give back, right? So what have we been given? We've been given a planetary situation where everything is fucking weaponized, right? We've been born into a house which is dysfunctional, right? And I'm not talking about this fucking condo. I'm not talking about the fucking family of origin, right? Your family of origin is like, as far as we understand, like I'm open to woo and everything, but like, as far as I know, I wake up every day, like near Atlanta, Georgia, which is this place, on planet Earth or whatever, Terra. We can talk about whatever, we can call it whatever the fuck you want, Turtle Island squared or whatever. Anyway, I forget what I'm talking about. but there's just like a bunch of whack shit going on. So like I've inherited, a position within that. But the question is, what do I have to give back? And in a way, I'm doing it right now, right? What I'm doing right now is trying to articulate my sense of urgency, articulate like the sort of non-judgmental way I'm coming out, going about this, because there's all different forms, ways of scapegoating, basically. And then this is also where like Carl Schmitt comes in, because that's what the friend-enemy distinction is all about, which is really just the concept of the political. So I talked the last time about the political theology. So that was just basic. I wasn't even really talking about Carl Schmitt, but basically just the concept of political theology is basically a way of talking about how politics is religion. Like there's no distinction, because if you talk about, for example, a nation as an imaginary community, right? Like the nation doesn't fucking exist, right? So like the state doesn't exist. The United States of America does not exist any more than God exists, right? But like that's not to say God doesn't exist. That's to say like the idea of existence is flawed, like, which I guess is another way of saying America is everywhere, but everything is everywhere, right? That's part of it, right? Is like, so in terms of the political, the symbolic challenge is that you're not going to be able to get out the damn spot, right? You have out damned spot. There's this, it should have a Wikipedia page. This should have a fucking Wikipedia page. This is fucking important. This why are you giving me that? It's not fucking happening. Is this a real website? It did talk about the sleepwalking scene, but it did. Anyway, out damn spot is this part of goddamn fucking Macbeth, where Lady Macbeth, like, she committed murder, right? And she's trying to get out the spot, but she can't fucking wash off the blood, right? She did it, right? It already fucking happened. Anyway, I don't know how did that get out. Imagine community. It doesn't exist any more than God does. Right. So everything that we hate is part of the world. And if it's part of the world, it's part of God, right? It's part of history, whatever, forever. Because history is not just like, is it going to be, it's like, is Eli Manning going to get into the Hall of Fame, right? Can you tell the story of the NFL without telling the story of Eli Manning? It's like, it's not like, like in the whatever, like the post-credit sequence or in the credits or the whatever, like in the award ceremony, the Hall of Fame of history, it's like, yeah, a bunch of historical villains are going to show up. But it's not exactly like that. It's for me, it's very psychedelic. Again, it reminds me a lot of Dreamtime. It's like the idea that the past isn't even past. So yeah, I guess this is a famous quote by Faulkner. So what I'm trying to talk about in terms of like psychological rigidity, because the thing is, like, even my uncle has like talked to me about like, like, well, the issue is, the people in power, they're just like fucking psychopaths or something. Okay, hot take alert. I don't believe in psychopaths. At least like the way, let's see here. The way people like talk about it in terms of like the idea that there's people who don't have emotions, or that there's people who so can't get away from political enemies. Basically because everything we don't like is part of God. So basically like the trade-off is that like we're all immortal, right? We're part of the divine, right? We already got there. There's nothing for us to achieve. We are good enough. So that's the good news. Good news. You are good enough. The bad news is everyone you hate is also good enough. So that's the issue, right? So then starting to deal with theodicy, because theodicy is basically the same issue, because it's like, why did this happen? Why, if something happened, it's good enough for God, right? Or whatever. Because if something became actual, then, there's a certain, like, forget equality, right? But things have actuality, right? Anyway, so yeah, like, how could this be? Like, this can't be. I know, I can't do this. So but really, we already got there. No, we didn't already get there. This is just this last part of Carnival and Cannibal, and I'm gonna have to go again because I need to take a break. But so again, the basic rule comes from the depths of anthropology, still applies: gift and counter gift. So this is basically like when you get given something, then you're obligated to give something back. So the question, I think, for us that he's trying to say is, like, we have a big anxiety crisis because in a way we've been given a lot, or what we've been given is overwhelming. And you don't have to think about it as like you got a gift. It's like you can be given a disease, right? Like, it's not necessarily a good thing. You don't, but in terms of, it's a symbolic challenge. Like, we all still face the challenge of, like, what are you going to do, right? And this is just giving more context for that. Like, what are you going to do, not just given, like, the strategic environment or whatever, but given, like, your symbolic obligation. Like, what is it? This is where it comes, like, this is the kind of thing where it's like, well, what does it mean to, like, do right by the founding fathers or, like, by America, right? Because it's like, we uphold an oath to the Constitution. It's like, well, what does the Constitution represent? It represents the people, right? Who are the people, right? Who counts as my idea of the people? What does my obligation to them consist of? What is my competence level? How do I understand the question of living up to my obligations under, we use words like honor, code, loyalty, right? What does loyalty mean, right? This idea of our having anything to give back. I mean, I'm like obviously totally riffing on this, but in terms of giving back, like, you want to pledge your support, you want to give your loyalty, right? You want to serve what you love, but how do you even serve, right? How can I help America, right? Especially if it's like the kind of thing where it's like, well, America seems like it's fucking crazy right now. Like, in terms of, for me, it's like, in general, a lot of the American politicians or whatever, like, it seems like it's what I've been talking about. It's this cognitive rigidity. It's because you're trying to live up to this idea of America or whatever, and all this shit we've been fucking saying about ourselves for a million fucking years, so that now we can't just, like, be humble and, like, acknowledge shit, because that will then that'll be a huge fucking, like, 180, and people are gonna fucking talk about, but you've been being a dick for fucking 250 fucking years or whatever, and we're gonna be like, I don't know. So, like, what I'm trying to talk about is like, rigidity has to be overcome, but I'm trying to explain where it's coming from. So it's not just cognitive rigidity in the sense of, like, we understand that war is like this. It's not just an inherited understanding. It's a sense that you don't want the people from the past to be wrong. You want to live up. You want to have their imagined approval in your eyes. And that's what the veneration of the dead is all about. And so if we understand that the veneration of the dead is a cultural universal and that everybody fucking does this shit, and I think that's the kind of shit where I'm like, I don't give a fuck about human rights, right? Like, human rights don't mean anything to me. Like, the concept of human doesn't mean anything to me, and the concept of rights doesn't mean anything to me. So human rights is, like, doubly nihilistic to me or whatever. Like, I don't care, right? Like, what's a human and what's a right? Like, answer me that, and then we can talk about it. But, like, this idea of the cultural universal, I don't like culture or universal as words, but the idea makes more sense. I guess I should say the same thing about human rights, but whatever. Human rights is offensive to me because I'm immediately like, you're just not talking about, like, the rights of animals or, the natural world or whatever. Like, anyway, it's just very circumstantial. But cultural universal is basically to say, like, people are going to want to venerate their dead. They're going to want to have some sort of positive regard and understanding for their ancestors. And if you're going to come along and say, colonization is evil, or, like, what are you going to say to me, right? Obviously, the Nazis are evil. I'm not going to argue about that shit. But, like, my grandfather, like, how am I supposed to feel about my fucking grandfather, right? That's part of the fucking issue, right? Like, and so in addition to, I'm nobody, right? Like, I'm doing this or whatever. But, like, people who are, like, have their finger on the nuclear button have similar issues, right? Like I don't know what Vladimir Putin's dad was doing, or Joe Biden, or what. Donald Trump, though, right? Like Donald Trump's dad still lives in his fucking head rent free. Like, that's true, right? So like that's true for all of us. It's not a point of shame. It's just a point of the fact that like it's not about like trauma and psychology and whatever. It's about your fucking symbolic fucking obligation. And like, what are you going to give back, right? You've been given this in addition to like our trauma, everything that's been inflicted on us. Then, the process of healing, the process of us coming to understand that we wouldn't be who we are without what happened to us. And so we can find gratitude and so on and so forth. And it's like, okay, that's great. But then the question is, what are you going to give back, right? Where are we going to go from here? Because it's like there's trauma. It's funny. Like, I always think about this. There's this quote from No Country for Old Men where he's talking about Moore's going out the door. They don't even have it on Wikipedia quote. That's so bad. That's like so bad. But here it is. All the time you spend trying to get back what's been took from you, there's more going out the door. After a while, you just try and get a tourniquet on it. I think the first sentence is even better. I think it's better to end it there. But what I'm trying to get at with that is that like there's all this issue, like our hangups about what's been done with our, like I got to go to a great school. I squandered the opportunity. For example, what am I giving back? Right? Like this is also related, I guess, to like noblesse oblige, but this applies to everybody. This is not just about. I can't fucking. Okay, I was able to do it, so that's great. Noblesse oblige. So that's basically like you from those who have been allotted has been too much as expected. That's funny that it came up that way. Oh, it's in the Bible. Fuck yeah. Load, load, load. So we'll finally just move on. Okay, we thought we'd found out a way by wiping the natural world from the map, but on the one hand, this does not settle the symbolic issues at all. The transformation of the world is a technological operation, not a symbolic one. And on the other hand, it is no response. We are just consenting ourselves with liquidating what we cannot respond to. So, I mean, Baudrillard's the way he's writing is all over the map because he's saying like this is a technical operation, not a symbolic one, but like right overhead, or like he's going to go on to say later on that like these things take up a symbolic role. So it's symbolic or is it not symbolic? Like some of the stuff you have to, I don't know. For example, just take some of it and not others. So wiping the natural world from the map, we're just trying to get rid of it. We're liquidating. This is a great way of talking though, like liquidating what we cannot respond to. So it's like, if you think about like exterminationism or eliminationism, there's also exterminationism. Like if you think about this is basically where you're trying to like kill everybody, right? You're trying to get around, you're trying to like mass murder, right? You are trying to fucking kill your enemies, right? And like this is basic. This is what Baudrillard talks about in terms of the final solution, right? And we're back to the Holocaust, right? But we're also again to new means because the Holocaust, again, it can get worse. More people can die, but the Holocaust and Nazi Germany, like it's an integrated thing. Like it also involves like burning books, for example, right? This like draconian media control. Like that's happening more and more as well. And it's more and more insidious and subtle. And it's basically a form of trying to liquidate. Just frustrate. It's like, it's not offering a proper response. It's basically just responding with, it's like when your little brother or whatever is, or like, I don't have a brother, but like when your little sibling or whatever is like coming at you and you hold them at arm's length, you're just doing that until they die. That's like, and it's like they're trying to argue with you and you don't have an argument. So you're just going to hold them at arm's length until you die. And then a lot, basically, yeah, this is happening a lot, even though a lot of people think they are responding, they're actually not, because there's just so little expectation that anybody really will. Really, nobody really takes that much symbolic responsibility. The first step is really to take responsibility for everything in the world. I think Camus might write about this. I think he might talk about this. Basically, this idea of like feeling responsible for everything. And not in the sense of like, I did it, blah, 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 but in the sense of like, we being very optimistic about the change that we can all make. Like, we can make big change. Like, we can express ourselves very differently. And the effect that we can have by doing so is incalculable, right? And so I think the idea that we, now I'm back to Sartre, but the idea that, nice, I think this is, oh, but maybe there's like another one for Sartre. Yeah. Like, oh shit. I'm really losing steam here. But mass murder, bad faith. What is the bad faith? I forget. Okay, we're just gonna have to move on. Okay. This technical solution has, in its excessiveness, ended up producing a world from which human beings are excluded, which is normal since they are themselves natural beings, and created a new situation of basic anxiety at dealing with a world that is totally beyond our grasp. I mean, I'm with this if we're saying nothing's natural. Like, we can't just take the, I don't really understand how Baudrillard's writing, because it seems like he's too smart to just like use the words like natural and human and ironically. But I guess that's just where I come in, because it's like, yes, human being, like there's some quote where it's like, nothing human escapes the near future. I just said escapes, LOL. Makes it out of the near future. Yeah. So this is funny. And it's like, that's fine, right? Because again, like Afro-pessimism, a human, like the concept of the human is not a good thing. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's fine to abolish the delusion of humanity. Like, there's no problem with that. That's why it's so important not to continue to reinforce the idea of humanity. Because it's like, that's not, in my mind, that's not like what we're fighting for. Like, what we're fighting for is something more like love. Right? Like, what we're fighting for, fighting for, whatever, right? Like, we're fighting for God, right? We're not, like, I don't need to articulate myself in terms of the human, right? It seems to me like this is something people constantly go back to, because it's something that we can, like, try and use to, like, it's the kind of thing where it's the club that will take anybody. So I get to be it, and you get to be it too, and so I get to make this sort of emotional appeal based on our shared humanity or whatever. But like, we share more than that, right? We share existential shit, like, and we're not humans, right? We're not even just animals, right? We like, in terms of what we share the fact that we have bacteria inside of us. We share the fact that asexual reproduction is going on inside our bodies, right? We share like all kinds of fucking shit, like, instead of just that. So like, why do I have to appeal? Anyway. Anxiety at dealing with a world that is totally beyond our grasp. Beyond our grasp goes again up to everything that escapes us. Everything that escapes us. The idea of things escaping us that deserves like a grand, poetic, like close reading. Like, that things escape us. It's like the idea of something getting away from you. You're trying to chase it down, like you're hunting, right? And it escaped. Right? Or something escapes you, like you can't remember, right? Oh, it's escaping me right now, but blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but now things are beyond our grasp. Like, we're reaching for things that are beyond our grasp. I really like to think about this in terms of like, imagine you get hit by a car and you're dying or something, and all of a sudden, like you were gonna run 20 miles, but you just got hit by a car and you're not going fucking anywhere. You're fucking dying, right? And all of a sudden, like your phone is like 5 feet away from you, and it might as well be fucking 1,000 miles away because you're never gonna fucking get there because you can't fucking move, right? And so, or think about the idea of like, being vivisected, right? You're being vivisected and you're paralyzed, but you can still feel the pain, right? Or like, total, and it's just like, to an extent, that's like what's happening. We're losing capacities. It's like a very scary situation, or just like the situation, like we're losing capacities not because we're losing the ability to do things, but because the things that we have the capacity to do are losing the ability to affect the situation. So it's basically like you can still punch the buttons, but the buttons aren't doing anything because like the thing that's operating behind the scenes is now moving so fast. So this actually gets to an idea Ben Zweibelsen talks about, I think, in the singleton paradox. I can't type, but luckily it doesn't matter. This is a YouTube video, but it should have a link to this in the description. I watched this live, by the way. Oh no. How could it not? Oh, I guess this article came out after. Oops. Okay. But yeah, in the singleton paradox, what? Oh, on top of the loop? Anyway, there's a part where it's like humans are behind the loop. I don't know if I can get there. Yeah, behind the loop. Okay, here we go. So, okay, so the relevance here is basically like you're punching the buttons, but like what the buttons are connected to is changing very quickly. Like you don't understand what's happening because you're behind what's going on. You can learn more by reading about this here. So I guess I'm just want to check. Probably still watching. It's so funny. Oh, I never even got to Gesamtkunstwerk. Okay, we'll have to start that up next time. But so it remains for us to understand what induces the human species to throw itself into such a performance. But there is nothing, unless we suppose that this is our real response and that this substitution mania is our form of countergift, our challenge. This is a great thing. This is our response. So what's interesting for me is that this is starting to say that, the symbolic has not been cut out of everything. So this is where transcommunism is starting to come from, because it's like this idea of primitive communism or symbolic exchange or whatever, the idea that that's been cast away is maybe a misnomer. So we're still within, as Baudrillard is saying here, we're still in this gift counter gift. We're still in animism, right? We're still in the veneration of the dead. We're still in the dream time, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. There's no problem with that. It's just we need to give up the expectation that we're doing something other than that. Anyway, our form of countergift, because then he says, if this is the case, our entire technical universe, even in its most excessive elements, again, think H cost, would then assume a high symbolic value as a response to the original gift, the original crime, that is the existence of the world without us, without our having been consulted. This is another where, like he said, we're fire. This is amazing. The original crime, again, think like Big Bang, which is just like the creation of the universe. And so I have thought about this a lot. I think about it in terms of Leela, because in terms of Leela, or this idea where, we're all God and we chose to incarnate, and we did actually choose this. And there's a lot of things like in woo-woo land that talk about how we chose to come here and chose to do this. Actually, I've known a lot of people, or not known, but seen a lot of people talk about, just be very uncompromised. Like, oh my God, like I know I chose to come here. Like, I don't have memories of all that shit, but I take the idea of Atman as Brahman seriously. And so this idea that maybe we were consulted and we've forgotten our role in creating where we already are, I think is interesting. I also just enjoy thinking about that in terms of cyclical, as well as, what would you even call it? Dispersional time. If you think about the dream time, it's not linear, it's not circular, it's just kind of like virtual. Maybe virtual time might be a good way of thinking about it. So yeah, the existence of the world without us. So basically, nobody asked to be born. So Baudrillard is basically saying the fact that nobody asked to be born, we can't get over that trauma, basically, and everything that we do is a response to that, even though the idea of the United States of America. So this is getting into similar things like terror management theory. But like, there's more to terror than just being afraid of death. There's also the fear of not being able to live up to expectations. Because the thing is, everybody's uncertain, but we communicate ourselves. We communicate the pretense of certainty. So we understand from other people that some things are expected from us, and then we're supposed to come out and deliver. But it's not clear what we're like. If it's just like, oh, get a job or whatever, it's like, okay, fine. But like, there's civilizational shit at stake, right? Like, I'm supposed to go out and win the war, but what is expected of you? Like, what are you supposed to do, right? And then it's like, well, you got to figure it out for yourself. And then basically it's about like, you have your intermediate goal. I mean, you really need to be goal-oriented activity. I don't know, like Taoism or something. I don't know. Never mind. This is not going to go well. But just in terms, because maybe it's because goal is too marketed a term, but it's like, I don't even know. I mean, intermediate goals. Well, just in terms of terror management theory, right? It's the terror not just of death, but of not being able to live up to expectations, which are themselves nebulous, as well as uncertain. Like the previous generation doesn't know what it means to live up to the mantle of civilization. They're asking us to figure it out, but also stay within lines that they consider honorable, even though they don't know what they're asking, right? It's just a lot. And so, but their response was of a similar form because they were doing the same thing before. And so anyway, so now, in which case, according to this new hypothesis, there would no longer be any reason to submit this whole way the system has developed to the tender mercies of critical thought and negativity. Matters would be settled here too. Now fully realized in the electronic form in the zero oneness of the world, the digital imperative that defined every breath of the planet's living billions. Here was the heave of the biosphere, as Don DeLillo writes in Cosmopolis. That being the case, there would no longer be any need to dream of a critical or symbolic alternative. It would just be a matter of going on with the destruction, since this is our challenge and the source of our pride, that we have smashed the fundamental symbolic rule and have not just conceived but brought into being to the very worst degree, but what is the worst in this case? A truly inhuman science fiction universe. Like, oh my God, like this shit is fucking amazing. Like, that's why I'm just like, why does nobody read fucking Baudrillard? It makes me so upset. Like, this is my favorite writer. He's so crazy awesome. But I mean, the thing is, it's tough because only I can read it, right? Because you have to pick up the right parts and not get lost on the wrong parts. And like, I feel like it's very hard for a lot of people because it's like you expect him to be. I mean, it's also that I'm not trying to just like get what Baudrillard wanted me to get out of it, but like, it's just radiating, right? It just radiates power. Like, it's amazing. The matter of going on with the destruction, like that is okay. So going on with the destruction, that reminds me of. It's not the third man. It is no. Oh God. It's this. It's because it says go on singing. But it's also similar to the go on with the destruction, is what I'm trying to say, from Carnival and Cannibal. So we're getting there. Okay, so this is, again, also like accelerationism. But the question is, accelerating what? And so, again, what you're doing is you're going on with the destruction of symbolic Like this is again getting into the idea of conceptual churn. Like you're continuing to churn things up, but you're not doing like criticism. You're not like condemning. You're not judging. You're just going on with cannibalism. Because it's like what we eat becomes our waste, and then the waste is still edible. Like this is magic, you know. And so then you just gotta keep doing bricolage, right? You got to work with what we're given and give things to other people for them to work with, right? And I think that's a key. That's what Wonder Twin Powers is all about. I'm self-consciously trying to give you something so you have something to work with and be inspired by and build something based off of. Like you don't have to do anything that I say for you to do. I just have faith that if you get inspired by what I'm saying, like you'll do shit that I think is cool and you will wind up being the fulfillment of my destiny. So that's nice. Okay. We may, moreover, extend the analysis of this all-encompassing machination to the whole field of simulation. We may take the view that the procession of models and images, the stratagem that erases the boundaries between the true and the false, is itself a form of offensive response to the actual world, the real world, and that all this is done to escape actuality and reality, to escape the unbearable pretension of the natural world that preceded us and seeks to force us to recognize that precedence. See, again, this is paranoid. See, I also think that this is why things like spiritual, like Hinduism or Atman is Brahman stuff keeps coming up, because this idea that the world challenges us, it's other is part of self in Hegel. There should be like a whole other like Hegel section. But we can just start there. So yeah, we're getting there. So basically, like, nature is not outside of us. Nature is not trying to get us to recognize anything. It's just that the whole assemblage of incarnation is trying to get us to recognize, the absolute knowledge. Basically, like we're coming into a knowledge of ourselves as everything or something. I mean, that's also not happening because time's not passing, right? I mean, that's where you get into, Parmenides. I think this is so great. Like, I think it's so great. Like, people will call it edgy, but I just think it's really great. I don't know how to explain it. Okay. Everything would, in fact, come down to this. We want to be the original, to be so at any cost. Oh, I thought I was closer to the end than I am. We want to be the original and to be so at any cost, even if it means destroying the genuine article. See, I disagree with this because, again, I'm like, Atman is Brahman. Like, I am the original, I'm Brahman. But I can't, there is no genuine article. Like, I'm the genuine article, you're the genuine article. Like, and again, it's back to Hegel. It's sort of like the dialectic of recognition. We're recognizing each other as Brahman, again, as entheism, as sacred objects, right? As worthy of love, right? As beloved, right? That's what I'm talking about. Like, you can go from grandiose and psychotic or whatever, solipsism, blah, blah, blah. You can go from that to just like brotherhood of man, golden rule type shit, just kumbaya, right? Like the kind of thing that you want. And people can say it's impossible in general, but that's also what you want. I mean, that's what people say they want, at least, like on a smaller scale. But maybe people don't even really want that. They want, other people to be controlled and everything like that. So maybe there's that. In this way, we are rounding off reality with a demolition project that is assuming insane proportions. That's great, right? We need to destroy a lot of like concepts, right? Like a lot of, but not just okay, this is actually a good way of talking about it. It's not just destroying concepts. It's fulfilling like symbolic obligations. Like the reason why we have these words is that we need to remember to do something. So the question is, what is it that we need to remember to do? Right? Like, what are we being called to remember if we're going to live up to the promise of America? If we're going to live up to, our ethnicity and our ancestors and like why we came here? Like, it doesn't even just have to be like what they told us, right? We need to come up with like, we weren't just given like a way of thinking. We were also given a body, right? When we weren't just given it by people, right? It wasn't like those people did not own their bodies, okay? Self-ownership is a fucking scam, okay? So like what I'm trying to say is we weren't just given our biological, it's not just because my parents chose to have me. That's why I'm here. It's not down to my parents. It's like also the distributed thing of like the genetics and World War II and like every aspect of history and the natural world or whatever, which like allows for that to happen. And so it's all staring at me. Anyway, today, unfortunately, the undertaking has succeeded so well and progress has made such strides that everything is potentially available to us, and we find ourselves in the same impasse as at the beginning, facing a reality as obvious and irresistible as if it had fallen from the sky. And still we do not know how to respond, nor to whom we are answerable. We can no longer set anything against this technological world, we're getting to the end. This hegemonic universe. We can no longer set anything against anything, nor even imagine what the extreme limits of this evolution might be. And those who still have a glimmer of nostalgia in them are asking why the world is so vulnerable to such a project of globalization, and why the human being is so vulnerable to this project of systematically eliminating the human. Okay, well, I mean, that's easy. The human being is defined poorly. Like, it's basically about the hypocrisy of liberalism. Like, you can't just, like, set up a universal category, but, or set up, like, universal rights, and, like, this is why we treat people nice, but then you, like, don't treat people nice. And then, like, people, even on the inside of the in-group, because you're deluding yourself, right? You think that you're universalist and you're morally superior, and, like, you treat people nice within a certain place, and so you have it nice. And in the meantime, people are getting killed all over the place, and you're just like, oh, that's where the whole playing with causality comes from. Where you're like, oh, but the Africans, they're just corrupt, and blah blah blah. Like you're just coming, oh, the Chinese, like, oh, that they're historical revisionists, and like, oh, who knows why they're upset, but you're basically saying they're hysterical, and it's like you're cutting people off, and you're like trying to liquidate them instead of respond to them. Guess what, motherfucker? Here come the fucking mirror people. That's what this is fucking about, right? You can't just fucking ignore this shit. And like, it's like a haunted house, right? It's like the ghost wants something. If you don't feed the ghost, like, this is where, again, I go back to ahimsa, but like, you just saw me get like worked up. And like, the way that I square that is just to say, like, I don't have to do anything. I'm not going to do anything to anybody. Like, what the nature of the Hobbesian trap is that we're all going to fucking burn alive or like be killed or worse if we don't fucking deal with this shit. So like, you can say that my YouTube video is rambly or whatever, you can think that I'm an idiot, but like, what are you doing about the Hobbesian trap? Like, I would like to see you take that concept seriously and like think about it, not just in terms of like, oh, we need to like keep doing our traditions and like challenge your ideas, do conceptual churn, like write out your thing, figure out your key signifiers, take them out, and like start over, right? That's what we're doing. Anyway, there remains also the nostalgia cultivated by all the heresies over the course of history, the dream running parallel to the course of the real world of the absolute event, which would open on to 1,000 years of happiness. The heightened expectation of the single event that would, at a stroke, unmask the enormous conspiracy in which we are immersed. This expectation is still at the heart of the collective imagination. The apocalypse is present in homeopathic doses in each of us. Okay. This is one of the core fucking passages of all time. Like, you need to read this. So then, the enormous conspiracy. That's what experimental unit is. It's the enormous conspiracy in which we are immersed. That's what I gave a name to. Because it's like, this is going to have to wait till next time, but this is the teaser for next time, right? Experimental unit, it consists of a way up and a way down. Yeah, can you like... Oh, they probably even make like an image, right? Do they make an image? Oh no, but there's a little bit of So basically what I'm trying to get at is that my frickin' experimental unit, I express it in terms of a duality. Because there's an orthogonality, like there's two different ways of thinking about things. So one is, we're like, what are we trying to do? What is the purpose? Why am I talking to you about experimental unit? On the one hand, it's a diffuse emergency response organization, right? So it's like we need to respond to the planetary emergency. And then it's like, why? And it's like, well, we could basically, we need to avoid pain and make pleasure. We want to avoid people dying. We want to avoid, we want to help people get better conditions, get people things that they need and whatever. And then aside from all that, we need to have the best time possible. And we're going to go from making world peace basically, but it's going to be better than peace. And then, we're going to make more peaceful than peace. That's what we need. Mother fricking. Then we're going to start a celebration, which is going to echo through all dimensions and all halls of eternity forever, right? Like that's what anyway. But so that's what we're going to do. And but so we so the stakes. The question is, what are the stakes in a way? Because from the other side, so that's like one way of looking at it is like there's a practical project because there's like something wrong with the world. And so that could either take the form of like, we're going to do something about geopolitics. We're going to do something about culture war. We're going to do something about depression, suicidality, just the problems of the world, the Odyssey, right? We're going to clean up the mess, right? And then once we clean up the mess, then we got to have a nice time as well as possible, right? That's then the question of like partying and stuff like that. So that's where there's that. But then experimental unit also basically refers to, like, if you look at the definition of experimental. So experimentation, there's more. No. Oh, see, there's more. It's so weird. See, look, based on experience. That's what's so interesting. I think it's so interesting. So then you think about, in terms of unit, when you think unit, think unity. If you think unity, think the one, right? I think it's not called the one. So yeah, you think experimental unit, think unity, the one, right? So the one is basically like the absolute. It's the all that is. It's the creator of everything. And then so it's experimental because it experiments with incarnation. And it experiments with, experiment, having to do with experience. So what is being expressed is that the absolute has taken on the form of an individual, and now it's like playing a game. This is, again, back to like, Leela. So that's part of what experimental unit is. So that's not really goal-oriented activity, right? I mean, in terms of like what's going on with America, we don't need to like fix world peace or whatever, right? We're just fucking like, maybe we came here to experience the process of like being worried about all this shit and then dying or whatever, like whatever happens is going to fucking happen, right? And we can't be attached to the outcome. That's actually, yeah, that's karma yoga, right? So, yeah, this is basically it. I wanted to explain this aspect of Carnival and Cannibal just to run it back. Like the way it all relates is that there's the part of the emergency is, and what I'm doing, right, is that there is the confluence of technology, philosophy, religion, spirituality, like everything that's happening. And so that expresses the sense in which, there is no capitalism. There is no whatever. Like, there is no status quo because the status quo is changing. And like the way in which it's changing is becoming more and more radically open. So like the realm of like working with these airy-fairy philosophies, conceptual, abstract ideas, and being creative exploring non-judgmentality or whatever, and then being able to apply that to vastly increasing technical powers, that is that's cool. And that involves, as I was saying before, how Baudrillard was saying that our technical universe assumes a high symbolic value, right? And so if we want to take basically a practice from Baudrillard, we're responding to the original gift again. And that's why I think it's so important to get into things like Hinduism and like different religions, because if it's like, this is not just about politics. This is not just about European colonialism, blah, blah, blah. This is about, why is there something rather than nothing? And maybe I'll leave you with this. So there's the way up and the way down. So the way up and the way down is like, there's the way down is like God coming down from heaven to be us, right? We came down. So we've already done the way down, and the experimental unit is sort of like exploring the ways in which we've come to be incarnated, basically. But then it's also the way up, because it's like, my supposition is that our emergency response, we're actually building Svarga, right? We are building like heaven, basically. And so we are building the place from which we will then descend. So basically we are creating our own past. So that's why the way up is the way down, because these are connected, right? Like it's like you go all the way up to heaven, and then it's like when I take a bath, right? I make it super hot, and then I put in cold water, because then it gets super cold, and then I put in hot water, right? So that I can go back and forth and back and forth. And then because it's like you go up and then you're in heaven and everything's perfect, and then it's boring, and and you come down, and then when you're down here, it's really bad. So you try to build back up, and you go back up to heaven, and then you come back down. Like, so the way up is the way down, because this is still I guess you'd say it's still samsara. But my intervention on samsara would be samsara is nirvana, right? Shout out to friend of the show, Nagarjuna. And with that, I am done for now. I hope somebody ever appreciates what I've done.